Welcome everybody to the first of our monthly training sessions for March 2022 for CSNO. I'm so glad you guys are able to join us. We were talking about real briefly here about the ERAP 2 application that went out to all of the CBOs, and most of the community action agencies in the state of Wyoming, I believe, have applied for that. Just to give you a brief update on what we're looking at, we do need some coverage for Lincoln County, Hot Springs County, and Fremont County. And if you know of anybody that might be interested, please let Liberty or Ashley at the DFS office know, or Mirandy, I'm sure too. They are looking for somebody to take care of that. Now that we're getting paid to actually do case management, it is a little bit more of an attractive grant that's available out there that can help you with any of your case management pieces. To also let you know, we are also currently working with the state office about a reimbursement basis for CBOs who are able to cash flow advance payments to pre-approved applicants. It would not put the application process into the hands of the CBO or the community action agency. Instead, that would stay with Deloitte. But the agency would be able to take a calculated a pretty, we can tell if somebody's going to be able to qualify for ERAP or not, and being able to pay rent and deposits up front within a day or two instead of waiting for the state to pay us. So we are having those conversations. They do recognize how critically important this is. We've had conversations about how necessary it is to address these social determinants to reduce the number of completed suicides because of a lack of housing and food insecurity that are causing some problems with our clients. The intent is good at the state, but many times you and I all know we don't have 4 to 6 weeks to wait for payments to go out. So there are several agencies and subgrantees of CSVG who are willing to take on a reimbursement should the state decide to do that. I did ask them to reach out to Shauna at the Department of Health to see how our CSBG grant is structured so they could see that there's already a model in place for us to be able to work with the state on a reimbursement basis. They'll be talking about that later, but that's just a quick update. I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed on where we are with that piece at this particular point. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Tim Ernst. Tim is the Interim Executive Director for the Community Action of Laramie County, and he is here to talk to us about today a unique program that they are doing in Cheyenne that is working with community action at the level that is providing true and lasting change for families moving from poverty into self-sufficiency. Please welcome Tim. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. I know you have some team members here as well. After this is over with, I will go ahead and send the recording out to everybody. Please share widely, and I'll be watching the chat for you, Tim. So if anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and put them in the chat. You should have share capability, Tim. If you need anything at all, let me know.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, everybody, and let me go ahead and get started here. Can everybody see the screen? The PowerPoint.
Looks good to me, Tim.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to start off to say that community action has been in Laramie County since 1967. We are a very well-established 501c3 organization that in Laramie County, and one of the longer standing nonprofits in Laramie County. And it's always been our mission to help with the low income and the poverty setting. Even though our agency has seen a lot of changes and will continue to see a lot of changes as we move forth, that it's all good. And several years ago, when I first started with community action in 2016, I came from working with the state of Wyoming to community action. And as we sat down and listened, or as I was listening to the staff, how we proceeded with CSBG funding. And it struck me like maybe we could do something a little bit different. So with that, this is PowerPoint, and this is what we're going to be talking about today here. So the first thing on our screen here is our mission statement. And I want to just let you know that our mission statement will be changing here within the probably next month or two, because we just had a big strategic plan and we wanted to update our strategic plan. But basically it is dedicated to eliminating poverty by empowering people through education, advocacy, and crisis intervention, and by providing opportunities towards self-sufficiency. We've changed the eliminating to decreasing, because we cannot eliminate poverty. There's just no way. That's we felt that it was
decreasing.
Yeah, we felt like it was a setting us up for failure, because we can't eliminate poverty, because it might be a person's choice to live that way. It might not, but there's always going to be some type of a poverty level out there. Like I said, in 16, when I came, we looked at our model. And in 2017, with the help of Shauna and Regina, we went to them and said, hey, you know, what we are doing out there is we're pretty much putting a Band-Aid on this situation, because we're not really having any outcomes by providing emergency services. All we're doing is providing 1 month of rent, few bus tokens, so forth, 1 month of, or maybe 2 months, it depends how far they were behind, on utilities. And that just was a very short term. It wasn't helping them long term. And then what we were seeing is, after we helped them, they would go to the next agency, and they were just constantly using the system. And so with Regina and Shauna's help, we sat down and kind of mapped out and with the staff, what can we do to fix this a little bit better? So we looked, it became Project Hope. We decided to go and help people, instead of short term or like 1 month, help those that are in need for a 1-year period. That means to bring them on a program that would see them through all their needs, not wants. There's a difference between a need and a want, for that 1 year. And with that, try to get them in a good place to get out of a poverty situation. That is from getting them back into school, getting them caught up on their rent, getting them, you know, whatever the case may be. So why Project Hope? Because of the, we are a federal grant, community service block grant. We were not producing quantifiable outcomes. I mean, when you just do emergency services like we were, all we could show the state, yeah, we did it, but all we could really say that we helped them for 1 month. We wanted to be good stewards of money. And we wanted to really fulfill our mission successfully. And by doing emergency services, again, it just went right back up to, we weren't really producing the quantifiable outcomes that we felt that needed to be done. So prior to October 1st of 17, I just wanted to show, like most of us in the state, and it works in some places, but we decided to just go a different route. All we did was rent and deposit, utilities, bus tokens. What's that? And we did, and we did a few other things, but mostly it was just a one-time situation. And what we were seeing was that the people could come back after 1 year, and by golly, on the day that they were eligible again, they were at the front door waiting for services. And so it was a tell-all right there that they knew when they were re-eligible for the services, and then the whole process for them would start over. Then community action, then they would go to a local church, then they would go here and here and here. So our idea here was, with what we were doing, were we decreasing poverty by doing emergency services? Were we empowering them by what we were doing? We weren't educating them at all. We were just helping them during the crisis time. Crisis intervention. Well, we can say, yes, we were helping them in crisis, but only for 1 month. We couldn't validate any further than that. And truly the most important, like it says on the slide here, were we truly helping the people become self-sufficient? And the team, 2 of the 3 original team members are still with Community Action, and that's Debbie and Daphne. And when we sat down and we said, no, we weren't, we were not doing any of those. So the task. So our task was to design a program that would and could produce results for quantifying outcomes. And that was the task. And this was not an overnight thought. It took some planning to do. Heads came together and brainstorming. We had to do a lot of brainstorming with Regina and with Shauna at the state, and to see what it looked like. And because we were a pilot program, the first in the state, and I don't know if we were probably not the first in the nation, but we were this was a pretty new idea overall. But how do we reduce the poverty? What causes the poverty? What population do we serve, and why do we serve them? And how do we address the issue, and who benefits? Well, CSBG kind of dictates who we serve, correct? It's right now at 200% and lower. At the time when we did this, it was at 125. So that kind of tells us who. But we wanted to see the folks who really wanted to participate, because there is a difference of people out there of just wanting a hand out versus a hand up. People are just used to coming and asking for money and then just move forward. They don't want to take that extra effort for the intensive case management nor do they want to help themselves to get out of that. So we had to come up with some different ideas of how we work with our population and make it an accessible program. So first, poverty needs to be defined. And I'm not going to go read it here because we all pretty much know what that is. And at the time when we did this, it was at 125% of the federal poverty level, and the persons must be homeless, near homeless, or facing an eviction within the 30 days. So that's when we started the program. And of course, things have changed a little bit on that aspect. Elimination. The elimination, you have to get the root of the problem. And what was the root of the problem? And so we just identified a few things. You know, it was the lack of income or job, lack of education, efficient medical care, child care, affordable housing, transportation, lack of motivation. Because depression, mental health issues. And as I put on the bottom, et cetera, and et cetera, because there's a lot to go into this. But when we sat down and reevaluated, every one of those things we saw in our clients. You know, if it wasn't one or two, it was all of them. And it was like, well, if we help them maybe with the education, that will bring them back up to, and I'm pointing off screen, so I'm sorry. So that would help with the income, you know. So if we would pay for them to get, let's say, an associate's degree, or just help them get their GED, will help increase their income as well. So by doing that, we knocked two of the goals out. And then meanwhile, we'll try to work with them and Department of Family Services to get them hooked up with daycare, with power, with other resources out there that we can make that person as a one unified case management unit, so that person, we can really help that person succeed. Empowerment, that is a huge word. Our whole goal is to empower our clients. We're not going to sit behind a desk and say, okay, you need to do this, 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 this. That's not good case management. We sit down and say, what do you want to achieve? Why do you want to achieve? And so, and as I put on the slide here, case management has to be the very core, because sometimes, as Debbie and Becky and Daphne can attest to, sometimes it might not cost the program any money. It just might cost a little bit of time of case management to help them, to listen to them, and to help them get on the right direction and say, oh, have you heard about this? You know, like in Cheyenne at the local college, you know, they have some scholarships that can help. Let's get you connected here. Let's get you connected there. And sometimes all it is that little connection. And for that whole year, for that client or participant or with that family, it just might be, we might only spend $500 total on that person, but they have succeeded their goals. And we always ask them, what is your goal? What is your short, medium, and long-term goal?
Can I add to that, Tim?
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, I see that advocacy is key on the bottom, but I think that's a huge part too of just knowing the system a bit better than our clients do. And so, you know, if they get a denial letter and they're just like, oh, well, I've always had this before, now I don't. I can say, okay, well, let's look into that. Let's ask why that's changed all of a sudden, and see what we can do about that. And you know, I've had a few clients that have lost Medicaid, and well, you know, did we miss paperwork? You know, things get shuffled in moves when you're homeless. So just advocating for those parts of, well, I always have this and now I don't, and they just take it. And okay, well, something changed. Let's figure out what that is. And
Tim, thank you, Daphne. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think one of the key points about, when we start talking about case management, and it is that do for, do with, cheer on mentality, where a lot of times our families that are so stuck, they're paralyzed by, paralysis by analysis. They don't know what steps to do next. A lot of times it is just making connections and helping them get through that part so they can start, going into that piece of getting ready for change, being ready to make changes and differences. And one of the things I put in the chat for those of you that are looking at a process of being able to do that step up from case management and bridge funding is the family-centered coaching process. And that is using heavy motivational interviewing and letting the family be the expert in their own lives. We don't always have to be the content specialist for everything. And that's one of the key things, Tim, that I really appreciate is what you just said. Look, we have to be able to advocate for our clients, which means we need to know a little bit about a lot of different things, but really connecting them to the specialists like the TRIO program at LCCC or any of those other things. So case management doesn't mean that we have to be the content specialist. It means getting them connected to the people who can make lasting change.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And oops, I kind of went backwards here. The other area that is very important as well, and when we do this, we really need the family, the participant, the individual buy-in, because if they're not willing to work with you, the program is not going to work. And so you have to make sure when they put in an application that they understand right up front what the expectation from them, and we have to know what their expectations are as well right up front, because if you don't know that, we're not going to succeed. And we've had several failures because people come in and they get maybe a month or 2 months into their program and they decide, oh, I'm done. I got what I needed, so I'm going to quit the program. That's a chance that we all have to take, even though we try to reach out and try to get them back on. But then they get a letter from us and say, look, you're off the program, and you're going to be off the program for a while because you didn't finish, because we have a lot of people out there that want to take advantage of the program for the full year, and you just, unfortunately, they just took a spot up where somebody else could have gone further with the program. So again, we really have to get the individuals buy-in. Crisis intervention. The person entering the doors of community actions or any of our agencies are always what? In a crisis mode. every one of them. And that sometimes that kind of surprises me when I hear people at a higher level of us that don't work every day with this type of population. Well, ERAP, for example, taking 4 to 6 weeks to put out a check. Sometimes, we are at the forefront and we're seeing the panic in people and they don't know what to do and they're frustrated, they're angry. And all that is directed really not at us, but we are the frontline people. And so, we have to understand and not get offended by what they're telling us. We have to be a little bit more sympathetic because at that moment, they're in a crisis mode. If it's, if they waited to the last minute and they've known about this for 3 weeks or 3 months, that they're going to get evicted, they come into the last day for help, yeah, it is their responsibility, but for some reason, they didn't take care of it and they are in a crisis mode. So we have to assess their immediate needs. Are they going to become homeless because they are going to be evicted? Utilities, especially during the winter time. The age of the person. Are we going, we need to look at, somebody who's 85 versus 25. Resources, background. To let everybody know, through our Project Hope program, we do a background check on all of our clients. We go through a local agency in Cheyenne. It's not because we want to see, felonies or anything like this, but when we go to help them for housing, we want to know if they are eligible for, let's say, Cheyenne Housing Authority, because if you have a conviction, you don't get into their program for Cheyenne Housing. Sex registered felons, if they're registered, they can't live within so many blocks from a school. So we run that background check and we let them know that the full purpose is we need to see what we can help them with to make sure we place them right. Because by all means, we don't want to set them up, let's say right across from a school and then find out 3 months later that somebody has a sexual registry hit on them, because what we've done is we have failed the family and or the individual. The self-sufficiency brings everything together in an effort to restoring the client's confidence in themselves. That's a huge statement. What we're trying to do is uplift them. And we have a lot of successful stories, from dentures being, yeah, we shelled out a little bit of money for dentures, but that person went and got a job. Nobody would hire that person because of their teeth, and got them dentures, and within a month they got a job. In turn, that job got them income. That in turn, they started to pay their own rent. In turn, they decided to go back to school. It's just a rolling effect. So, and it all came down to the case manager saying, hey, let's get you into a dentist and see what we can do. So that right there is huge. So the very first year, you're going to see this, and and that's one thing that I talked a lot with the state, and Shauna, you can chime in anytime. One thing I was very concerned is when we were doing emergency services in Laramie County, we were averaging about 800 to 900 clients a year for emergency services. When I wrote the grant, I believe it was 10 to 25 clients that we were going to pick up. That is a huge decrease from 800 people down to 10 to 25 clients. That is huge. And was Laramie County prepared for that? Initially, we had an assessment, and we worked with a college for a means tested intake. It was a very long, and which we have adjusted that as well, but it was a 4-hour assessment with a 2 to 3 case managers attended. It was a 38-page long document. And part of the eligibility was 125% of the FPL. And just going down this slide here, you know, again, they had to commit to a 1-year commitment, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly meetings. And usually what the case managers did, they started off pretty much, if it was severe case, weekly, and then they would go bi-weekly, and then they would go monthly, and sometimes every other month. It just depends on their progress. But knowing that they could come in anytime or call and say, look, I'm struggling on this aspect, and they could be fit in. Monthly and quarterly assessments have to be done. And of course, referrals and resources are always given to every one of our clients. But the biggest thing for us, and I've been talking to Fremont County, the biggest part is this right here, right on top. Oops, I'm sorry. The 10 versus 800. That was huge. That was huge. Even though we visited with our other nonprofits and everything, I don't think they heard us until it actually started. And then they went, oh my God, what happened? Why aren't you helping? And besides us getting into a new program, we were fielding all these phone calls, you know, why aren't you helping? Why aren't you helping? Well, you know, as we indicated a couple months ago, we switched over to this new program. And so it took a while for our community to wrap around it. But I tell you, our community has really wrapped around it. To a matter of fact, last week it went to the Kiwanis meeting, luncheon, and gave a presentation, and they were truly thrilled of how we are addressing the community needs. Versus, you know, like I always say, they like ripping off that Band-Aid to come to a good idea of making them successful.
Can I add to that, Tim?
Sure.
I think it's been a lot easier to screen people too with the availability of ERAP, because we can kind of lay out, here's your choices, and it really seems like the ones that really want that change are like, yeah, Project Hope, that's for me, versus the ones that just want rent for a month or two. They're like, I just want ERAP. And it's been a lot easier to screen people with that availability, because you're really catching those ones that want that long-term change and want that one-on-one case management with you to get that change.
So this here has been updated here since But overall, let me see how I can get back to that screen. I apologize here. Do we know how to back up our screen? Okay, right here. So this is for October 1st for 1 year. The first year, we had 14 people that were accepted into the program. Out of the 14, 4 persons had to meet all the goals and were ready to graduate by June of 18. So between October and June, out of the 14, 4 of them met their goals, met their objectives, met their outcomes, and they were ready to graduate. By September of 18, 7 were preparing to graduate the ceremonies, which was held the 26th. Of the 11 people, 2 are in the process or have already started purchasing a home. 2 are enrolled in classes and 4 are preparing to start classes in the spring. And that's either the college or with their GED. 6 are getting ready to purchase vehicles. 5 are currently employed and all working to pay off their debts. So that is huge. That is truly, truly huge. And in my grant, in our outcomes, my goal to the state, and I believe if I think I put 32%, that was our goal of success. And we met that. Actually, we were quite over that 32%, and which I think everybody was quite surprised. And I know I was surprised, and we were very happy with that. And it just proved that it did work. It did work, and the program does work. So here is just a couple things. Here's some pictures of the graduation during that time. And I think it's important, and this is what I shared with the Fremont County folks. When people graduate from the program, make a big deal out of it. We haven't done that in the last 2 years because of COVID. But this year, we'll get back into the swing of things because things are getting a little bit more normal. But we rented out the botanical gardens. They have a beautiful spot in there. We had cake, we had punch, and everybody got who graduated from the program, a plaque. And the plaque was to congratulate them and show them that they were a graduate of Project Hope, and which is, as you can see with some of the smiles in this photo, is how pleased they were to succeed. And for some of them, this is the first time they ever got anything, because some of them didn't graduate from high school, some of them didn't. And so this was just, one of them actually brought their whole entire family to participate because they were receiving an achievement award. So, which is very cool, very cool. So again, 4 graduates in 6 months, 7 total, or 7 in the other prior months. So as we go forth, we are continuing to gear up and continuing the program. Matter of fact, and Daphne, Debbie, and Becky, I believe we have a waiting list for our Project Hope, and which, you know, is kind of sad, but on the other side, it just confirms that the word is out there, and people are willing to take that extra mile to work with the intensive case management. So with that, I will take any questions or any comments, or, but I'm
Tim,
very,
this is Susan. I have a ton of questions. My first one is, do you guys use a CAP 60 for your case management software? So you are tracking all your referrals, your goals, your individuals in CAP 60.
we do.
So you didn't have to go out and purchase, right? You didn't have to go out and purchase additional software. I'll be calling you about that one. When you started this, though, this was pre-COVID. And I know you and I have had discussions about the changes that COVID brought to our world. And there are more people that probably needed a little bit more of that bridging funding, that bridge funding between not necessarily needing the full case management, but yet still needing that emergency services. Did that fundamentally change any of the way you provided services in Cheyenne?
So I'm going to tell you the COVID-19 extra funding that the state gave us, that came in at perfect timing because we ran two separate programs. We really focused on Project Hope, the original COVID funding, or excuse me, the regular CSBG funding. We kept it very clean with the Project Hope. But with the COVID-19, we did do emergency services out of that funding due to the fact that we did see a huge need for a lot of people that needed that just a month or two extra little help for that. So yes, so to answer that question, we kept it very separate, Susan. We just felt that was a better need.
Yeah, so when your CARES Act money is fully expended, because we do have an extension on that now, when that's fully extended, do you think that you will continue on that emergency program, that emergency bridge funding program?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Because we feel very strong that Project Hope is the way to address long-term needs. If we go back to the emergency services, I think what we would be sending really a mixed signal to our community. You know, hope, you know, should the state get more funding for COVID emergency services, of course we would, you know, take that out. But and that's funny that you even mentioned that, because as of this month, as of today, we have officially ran out of the COVID-19 emergency funds for that line item. We almost spent $600,000 out of that line item. And so that's huge. And, but if the person continues to need services, you know, and if there's an opening for Project Hope, we'll try to get them in. But our first priority is for those that are already accepted and we're working with the Project Hope.
That's interesting and helpful. Thank you. Because Compass Center for Families is inspired by your naming Project Hope, or Project Thrive is what Compass Center for Families is looking at, and providing that case management in Sheridan County, Johnson County, and Bighorn County. And one of the things that we're finding is in our smaller communities, there weren't other nonprofits that were able to step up, or faith-based organizations like churches that were able to step up and help with that gap in emergency or bridge funding that would have moved into case management. And so it was one of the things that really, what we're looking at is being able to work with agencies on the ground who are in less populated, resource thirsty communities to be able to do a form of case management similar to what Cheyenne and Sheridan are going to be doing, but doesn't have the same level of resources, referral resources. And looking at how we're able to share that knowledge across the state, because there are places like maybe say Torrington that doesn't have the same amount of resources that Sheridan may have. And so are you finding some things that you were like, oh, that worked really, really well in our experience? Or if there's somebody who's looking at doing and changing over to a case management model, what they should think about, or some things that maybe you have advice for them about some things that you learned along the way?
Absolutely. So, and we had this long discussion and with Fremont and with Teresa and everybody there in Fremont County. Switching over, that was quite a process for us. Even though we thought, or I thought, we communicated with our partners very well about switching over from emergency services to a more intensive case management, and we wouldn't be doing emergency services. They heard us, but I don't think they really understood truly what that meant. And so if anybody would want to go this direction, and I really shared this again with the folks that are looking at this, to communicate a good 6 months and just go back and reiterate. You know, this is going to put effect on the other nonprofits that, or churches or so forth that do emergency services, because we are going to only have this many slots open based on our budget. We can help, and we're not going to we're not going to slide over and start doing emergency services, because like I told my staff when we did this, because if we start doing it for one person, even though Laramie County has 95,000 people, that's a very small community. And the word starts getting out, and well, you did it for them, why aren't you doing it for me? And then it just starts causing a lot of issues, and then you have to start opening it up. So we just made it very strict to say, no, you know, we're not going to go that direction. It's going to be 100% the Project Hope, and we can't veer off, because that could put us in a worse situation, not only with our community or with our clients, but maybe with our community partners as well. Well, what you did it for them, why aren't you doing, you know? So that's the biggest message I would want to share out there. Also, the second most is expect some failures. And it's okay. And I really appreciate it, Shauna. There was a couple times we had a couple big failures, you know, and it was like, oh my God, are we on the wrong track here? Because they came in, all excited, until they had to start with, okay, the monthly check-in or the weekly check-in, and they were missing meeting after meeting. But yet we paid for their rent and stuff, and then they disappear. And you know, the state was supportive enough where they went, it's okay, let's just start from that point on. And so failure is okay, but reevaluate what went wrong. And that's what we did. And with Daphne and Debbie being part of the Roots, we went back and looked at what we were doing wrong and tried to adjust accordingly.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. I think for those of us that have been through the Roma training, having reasonable expectations of what success is supposed to look like in your outcomes, using the baseball analogy is an important thing to remember. 32% success rate, Tim, that's a huge amount. And to find out you exceeded that, but it wasn't a perfect path. And so patience, being able to be flexible moving forward. I love this whole idea. And in my perfect world, everybody would be able to do this intensive type of case management. And I know it's not possible for everybody.
Right.
ERAP 2 is helping us. This is something that we'll have until 2025, is this ability to help supplement our case management positions based on their ability to keep people in their houses. Because poverty, when we look at our domains, we have to keep them in their house. And that means increased income, better job opportunities, better daycare, better all those indicators that you said that you saw in there that we're going to be able to help people with that underlying idea that if we're keeping people in their house and preventing them from becoming homeless, ERAP is going to be able to help some of those counties be able to do so. That's not something you had as you were planning this. So has that changed anything for you?
Oh, absolutely. We are very fortunate to be a CBO, and we have their offices right next door to Daphne, Debbie, and Becky. And so they can refer right over to the Project Hope or vice versa. And the only thing that we are finding out is our CBO, they're almost 3 weeks booked out with clients. Matter of fact, we're going to be hiring another person, a full-time employee, to pick up some of this to help eliminate or to reduce some of the backlog, because people are walking in and they don't, again, they're in a crisis mode when they come in, and we say, well, we're 3 weeks out. Well, my rent, we're overdue, and I've got an eviction notice and I need help today. Even though we try to fit them in, it's not the case all the time. And so, yeah. But like you said, Susan, when we started Project Hope, we did not have that ERAP. And so it does help. It does help. And should somebody doesn't meet the qualifications or for Project Hope, we can always do a referral over to ERAP as well. Or if ERAP says, hey, I think you might be a better fit, and if there's an opening, we'll take them on as a Project Hope. But right now we have a waiting list for the Project Hope program as well.
Tim, I had a question. You were talking about your intake and your assessments. When you were starting Project Hope, did you use or refer to a specific curriculum or model, or was this developed from best practices you were using in resource withdrawal?
So we used a modified, with the help of Cornell University, of a means tested intake. Mm-hmm. And like I stated earlier, it was 38 pages long. It got really in depth. But as we processed along, we have cut it down tremendously, because we have found out that the most pertinent information, or a lot of that information, wasn't really relevant to us. So we had to go back, and it's been changed probably 3 or 4 times now, but we still get the information that is needed to help us to determine, what their need is, and with conversation then with them, what is their goal when they come into the program. And so, yeah, 38 pages versus, what is it, Daphne and Debbie, 4, Becky, 4
I
pages
think
now?
it's 14 now.
Or
And
14?
you do a like 2-page screening, just to get a good idea of things before we go into the full assessment, if we can weed out some of those topics beforehand, and not go into the huge assessment.
Yeah. So, and that's huge. So
really quickly, I want you guys to be able to speak with Tim if you have any questions. I have to step away because I have a national meeting that started a couple of minutes ago, but Tiffany's going to be the host of this session. So when I leave, this won't end. I just wanted to thank you, Tim, and I'm going to catch up with you later because I've got lots of questions.
absolutely.
All right. Enjoy, you guys.
Thank you, Susan.